and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Nicole and I'm a part-time reseller on Poshmark, and today I'm going to talk about what has sold for me so far this year in January and February. This video is going to cover those top selling brands that, are just bringing in the most money for me. I'm just going to go through each one using the Posh Closet Insights. So hopefully this is helpful for you so you can find out what brands are selling. Now, obviously month to month it's going to change, so maybe take this with a grain of salt. Maybe you can, note some of these brands, but I wouldn't go and pick up every single one of these just because times are going to shift as we get into the warmer months. People are going to start looking for, spring and summer items as opposed to winter items. So maybe some of these brands might not sell for you, but these are just brands to be on the lookout for. They are brands that are selling for me right now. Okay, so the first brand that has made me the most money so far in the last 2 months has been vintage brands. So this can be anything that's vintage. I kind of just categorize it all together, but that could be anything like Fashion Bug or The Limited or any of those brands that aren't around anymore that were from, the 90s or the 2000s. I do sell a lot of that. I actually get a lot of donations from those brands, and I do pick up a lot from the Goodwill as well. So those continue to sell for me, and I just categorize them as vintage because sometimes that actually helps them sell faster. But yeah, I do swear by selling vintage stuff, and if you have the right market for it, it could sell pretty well. The next top selling brand after that is actually Abercrombie & Fitch. So this is one that I don't normally sell that much, but it actually has been selling a lot more for me. I've been selling a lot of jeans recently, and they have good stuff, and their actual prices are pretty expensive, so getting them secondhand is a great way to shop Abercrombie & Fitch. So I actually remember I used to want to shop there in high school, but then it was always just too expensive for me. And so now actually it's selling surprisingly well for me on the platform. So I'm just going to continue to pick it up where I see it and hope that it continues to sell. Okay, the next brand that is selling for me in the last 2 months that's pulling in a decent amount of money is actually American Eagle. So this is always a top selling brand for me. If if you've been around my channel for a while, you know that I always say that American Eagle sells really well. That is one of those brands that is like a tried and true favorite. It's like a bolo brand. I will always pick it up because it always sells. And whether it's jeans, pants, dresses, shirts, you name it, it will sell for me. Okay, so the next brand that sold a lot for me in the last 2 months, and this is one of those brands that I said maybe won't sell, in the coming months as much, but UGG. UGG has been selling really well. I've been selling, a decent amount of UGG. I think with these colder months, people want to buy UGGs, people like UGGs, so that's probably why that makes sense that I was selling it. But I don't think going into March and April I'm going to be selling as many Uggs, just because it's going to start getting warmer and people are going to start thinking about, summer stuff more than they're going to think about a winter brand such as UGG. And actually going along with the UGG, I actually sold the sister brand. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. I think it's Kombu or something like that. I actually sold a decent amount of that. That was actually the next brand after UGG. So that's also selling pretty well. And that's a cheaper version, but it still is, a good price to begin with. And the next brand that I've been selling a decent amount is actually Pink Lily. So Pink Lily is a small boutique that not a lot of people know about, but they have really good quality items. Their pieces are pretty expensive, but they actually do sell really well as well. So I've been selling a decent amount of those. I actually have been selling them for a family friend, and so I don't really pick them up as much, but now I've been starting to because it's been selling a lot more. And I know I've seen a lot of people, being interested in the Pink Lily items in my closet. So I'm going to continue picking them up and selling them, and hopefully it'll continue to sell really well for me. Okay, so the next brand that I made some good money off of this month was actually Soul by Naturalizer. And this was actually two specific pairs of shoes that I was able to sell. There were 2 sandals. I sold them to the same person. And so that's where that bulk of that money came from. But I actually have sold some Soul by Naturalizer before, and it sells pretty well for me in general. And because their items are really well made, and the items that I had were in practically new condition, so that's why I knew that they were going to sell pretty well for me again these last couple months. Okay, and the next brand that was actually selling for me in the last 2 months, which if you watch my video of brands that I don't pick up anymore, you would see that I talked about this brand, saying I don't pick this brand up anymore because I'm having a hard time selling it. But the brand is actually Madewell, which is actually quite surprising because I haven't really had much luck with Madewell over the last, so many months and so many years. But I guess I was just clearing through a lot of Madewell items that I had already, and so I was just kind of selling them as low as I could just to clear them. So that could be why it's one of the top selling brands, but I still haven't been picking it up. I've been just trying to clear out of what I already had. Okay, and the next top selling brand after that was actually Adidas. So Adidas is one of those brands that I swear by selling. A lot of people really like athletic brands, and so I continue to pick it up. I continue to list it, and I actually take a lot of things out of my own personal closet. I get things at the Goodwill for like on Dollar Day and stuff like that, and they continue to sell, so I'm gonna continue to pick them up. Okay, and the next brand that sells really well for me in the last couple months was Inc. So this is another brand that like I haven't really been picking up that much, but like occasionally I'll pick it up if I see it. But I did have a couple of things in my closet already, and so I guess those things were selling, but it's not a brand that I typically go for that often. But now that I know it's a top seller this month, maybe I'll continue to look out for it when I go thrifting. And the last brand that we're going to talk about in this video for this brands that I've sold recently is going to be Old Navy. So Old Navy is one of those brands that I talked about in the video where I said these are the brands that are selling fast for me. Old Navy was one of those brands, and this continues to sell really well for me time and time again. Like I mentioned, it's not a expensive brand, but people like to get it like, you know, even cheaper than it is in the store. And sometimes I feel like people are paying more on Poshmark than they are with the Old Navy sales and deals, but it continues to sell, so I'm going to continue to sell it and list it and you know, continue to make some money off of it. So hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully this gave you an idea of the brands that have been selling for me recently, and it'll be interesting to see what the next couple of months look like in terms of what brands are selling. I'd be interested to see how many of these are, you know, stay the same versus change in the next 2 months. But yeah, I just figured I would do this because I've gotten some requests of people asking for, you know, what sold videos or what brands that I typically sell, and so I just figured look at the data itself and see what brands have been selling for me so far this year, and these are the top selling brands for me. So let me know down below what are your top selling brands so far this year and what brands you've been looking out for, and maybe what brand hasn't been selling for you that you're kind of shocked about. I would love to hear that down below. And if you want to see a video on some secret features and tips that I bet you didn't know about Poshmark, you can click right here. And if you want to see another video on how to get started with live sales, whether that be, you know, setting up for a show, hosting a show, or what kind of setup you need to have for a show, you can click right here. This will give you all the tips and tricks on that. But until next time, I will see you then.